Hello ladies and gentlemen, let's talk about something fun and exciting and a bit crazy. Caps is moving to AD carry and Perkz is moving back into mid lane. Is it crazy? 2019 we saw Perkz move to ADC. We consider that crazy, but it turns out it was genius. I think you require a bit of crazy in order to form genius. So let's explore. I think the best place to start is what were G2's issues at the World Championship? At the World Championship, there were many things, many things. I think, for one, pacing, meaning I didn't feel like G2 peaked at the World Championship. I feel like Spring and MSI, they had a lot more intensity because they went all out, and I made a whole video on pacing that you can check out in the description below. Just check it out, alright? I'm not gonna go too heavily into it. Second, bootcamping in Europe was a big meme. Big freaking meme. Every other team came to Europe to learn from, of course, G2. They were the best of the best there, and it was just a big mistake. Everyone wants to talk about how the gap is closing and how fantastic Europe is, but honestly, overall, the Chinese teams and the Korean teams, if there was a 10v10 team tournament between Europe and LPL, then the LPL would fucking demolish, you know? It would just demolish. And on top of that, the approach that the Korean teams have had in practice, for as long as I know, always in your practice against them. You know, I remember when I was in the Africa Freaks gaming house, Spirit came to me after one game, he's like, yeah, I made a mistake, so they benched me. He made a mistake in scrim, not even like a shitty mistake, it was like he had a thought process. He was like, I'm gonna try this, and then it didn't work, and then he got benched, you know, and then he got swapped out. You know, that's how intense it was, you know, meaning that the Korean teams, their approach to scrims was like, you don't do mistakes, you make sure everything is in the boundaries of, you know, what we want to accomplish, and it's all about making sure that it's clean and disciplined. While in Europe, it's a lot about testing limits. For G2, it's a lot about testing limits, testing champions, keeping it interesting, keeping it like, you know, like sparring. You know, you're like sparring very lightly, you're testing some limits, you might int, you might be 0-8, you might find something new. You learn like this, right? You throw some shit on the wall, you see what sticks, right? So for a team like G2 to practice against a team like, you know, some of the Korean teams, it's perfect, because they can throw random shit at the wall and they'll see what sticks, and they are playing against an opponent that is almost like an AI, meaning that, you know, they don't want to make mistakes, they want to play a very set way, they want to play very disciplined. This is just perfect for G2, because in G2, a lot of the other teams also test limits. My team, you know, last year, Vitality, we were testing a lot of limits. The scrims become very cocktail, and sometimes it's frustrating to practice against a team like that. And I think G2 could have definitely capitalized on this, you know? G2 would have gained so much more if they practiced against Korean teams and LPL teams. That's just a fact. Next thing is, big issue, you know, if we look at the best of fives in summer and coming into the finals of FBX, where they lost, all of the finals that they played, it wasn't necessary for them to play around the 2v2 mid lane. Damon was easy for them. Caps was just pushing and roaming, no 2v2 mid, because Canyon and Showmaker don't play 2v2 mid. Next thing, SK Telecom. Very surprising that they didn't play 2v2 mid lane at this tournament, but they were very passive in the early game. The only advantages that they got was not through team play, it was only through sheer lane dominance, and then Klid just taking objectives and building vision, right? They were playing a very basic and slow style in the early game. No big monster transitions like FBX. FBX, on the other hand, they've been practicing this 2v2 mid lane for so long. Tian and Doinby, absolutely beautiful how they play together. Doinby and solo queue, I saw Jizuki play against him. He told me that he solo killed him, so I looked up some of his replays. And, you know, 1v1, he was not that great because he didn't have Tian backing him up. But how Doinby and Tian work together is on a whole nother level, and is the main reason why they won the World Championship, because of how good they played the 2v2 mid lane. And then it came down to G2, their 2v2 mid lane, it had never been challenged. Even in regionally, domestically, when they faced Fnatic and they went to 5 games twice, they didn't need to focus on that 2v2 mid lane because, of course, Fnatic, we know they only play through bottom. They only play through bottom. With that being said, you know, this was a massive issue. All this together, I think there was also a lack of discipline. They made a lot of silly mistakes. You know, there's other things to address, but I want to focus on this. And in contrast, we're talking about Caps moving to ADC, Perkz moving back into mid lane. Perkz and Jankos have played together for a very, very long time now. They're heading into the 3rd year where they played together. It is very easy to forget all those funnel times where Perkz and Jankos played together, all those 2v2 mid lanes they played, when they had issues on the bottom side of the map. Perkz, also as a mid laner, is someone that was always a part of very lethal 2v2 mid lanes. Because when he had his breakout split, if you take a look back at 2016 spring split, they were dominating everyone through the sheer force of Trick and Perkz dominating 2v2 mid lane. So Perkz definitely has the leadership qualities, has the right qualities to be the perfect player in this position. And, you know, we talk about Perkz moving to ADC. I think mid lane is the most difficult role to play, and I think a lot of mid laners that are at the highest level could be fantastic AD carries too. So best case scenario here for G2. G2 have a fantastic 2v2 mid lane. It solves one of these issues. They also take a very relaxed approach to spring. They get to test a new role. They understand that they're not going to win everything right away. They have nothing to prove. They take it easy. Another problem solved. And then third, you know, maybe, just maybe, Caps on AD carry is going to be fantastic. So let's talk about the worst case scenario. What is the worst thing that could happen with this? Well, the worst thing that could happen is that it's a big waste of fucking time. If it's a big waste of time, and all of a sudden they are not working on these issues that we mentioned before, like Caps and Jankos working together, building that 2v2 synergy, playing through mid lane and then spreading that to the rest of the map, all of a sudden, you know, they might lag behind on this. It might be an issue. The scenario that I'm predicting is that they're going to take a lax approach, then eventually Perkz is going to go back to ADC, they're going to address their issues, and they're going to just add another weapon to the repertoire. I don't think it's going to be too crazy. I'm predicting Perkz to go back into ADC. I think it's just about taking it easy in spring, making sure there's no burnout, making sure that, you know, everything is fun and fresh and exciting for all of the players. The dynamic completely changes. Even in this case, it's almost as if you're switching a player. You're not really switching a player, but you're switching a player because Perkz is moving centrally and his position has an overview of everything that's happening, and he can communicate very differently from mid than what he does from the AD carry position. So that's amazing, and this also keeps things fresh, because even, you know, making dynamic changes can be exciting for the whole team and reinvigorating for the whole team. So either, you know, I think there's a world where this is genius. Might not happen. I think there's a world where this is, you know, a big waste of time. Probably. I think there's a world where there's an in-between, and that's where I'm at. I think Perkz is going to go back to ADC eventually, and then you know, spring split is going to be kind of like a ramp-up split for G2, where eventually they're going to take it slow. Maybe they don't get to MSI. I don't think they're gonna mind, because I think their eyes are on the big prize, and that is to win the World Championship. Because in the end, no one gives a shit. You know, that's the crazy thing is, you know, winning MSI or whatever, it's everything past it, everyone forgets about it. In the end, it's like FPX is the world champion, and that's what I think G2 is gunning for. What do you think about the Caps move to AD carry? Do you think it's crazy? Do you think it's bad? I'm not sure. Honestly, I've given you guys my opinion. Please share me yours. Please join the YamatoCannon subreddit. We've reached 1K subscribers, which is pretty cool. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. Thank you. Very cool. With that being said, I'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace.